Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, I am Letty. I like to talk about Christian fiction, and if you do know me, it's good to see you again. So, the last full week in April is National Princess Week, and that's super fun because you know we love our princess books, we love our royalty books. So today I thought I would do a video doing some recommendations on royal reads. And first of all, let me recommend a really great publisher to you. It's White Crown Publishing. They are an imprint of White Fire Publishing, and White Crown publishes like solely royal reads. They are a Christian fiction publisher. They're a small publisher, and they just publish royal books. So if you're looking for royal books, I would definitely recommend giving them a look, whether you're getting some of their books, or they also have lists on their websites of their recommended royal reads, which may come from other publishers, so you can find those there as well. So yeah, just a shout out to them, because they're awesome. And let's go ahead and get started with our book list, shall we? So the first author I have on the list today is Rachel Hauck. I think that she was kind of one of the pioneers of Christian royal reads. And I don't mean like one of the first to do it, because we'll get later on to one of the first, which was Wick. But she's one of the most like famous for doing it, I guess you could say. Like a lot of people, when they think of like royal Christian fiction reads, they're thinking of like Rachel Hauck. You know, she's one of the first names that come up when you Google it. So she has two series that I want to mention today, and one is the Royal Wedding series. It starts with Once Upon a Prince, and then Princess Everafter, How to Catch a Prince, and then a final novella, which is A Royal Christmas Wedding. So I read the first book in the series, Once Upon a Prince, and there's actually a Hallmark Channel movie based off of it. And I actually saw the Hallmark movie first, and then I found this book, and I didn't know that that movie was based off it. So when I was reading this book, I was like, this is so familiar. And then I realized, because I had seen years prior the Hallmark movie. But yeah, it's about a prince that goes to like a small town in North Carolina or South Carolina. I totally forget why he does, but he starts dating this girl, and then it's revealed that he is a prince, and so she travels back with him. And you know, if you've seen any Royal Hallmark movies, you know how that goes. And the book is very similar to the movie, except it has more overt Christian themes. I have not read the second and third book in the series. At least I don't think. If I did, I don't remember them. Actually, I might have. Like, I feel like I remember trying to read them years ago and then just not being that into them. Anyway, but I do like the fourth book, which is the novella, A Royal Christmas Wedding. It's actually my favorite book of the series. I think it's really well done. It's like the youngest characters of the series, but then they're a little bit older in their own novella, and it's kind of a second chance romance, because you see them in the first novel as teenagers, and then you see them in the final novella as adults, and so that's kind of fun. And I just think it's a really cute, short Christmas read. So yeah, that's the Royal Wedding series. And then you have the True Blue Royal series, which is To Love a Prince and To Save a King. And I read To Love a Prince, I think shortly after it came out, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't remember much about it, but I remember the prince and the girl being like a commoner, but she's like his friend, and she's helping him with something, and they climb a mountain for something. Like, there's something that takes place on a mountain, like they go hiking up a mountain. It's pretty much all I remember. I have not read To Save a King, the second book in this series. And the reason that I haven't read To Save a King is just because, I don't know, I just don't love Rachel Hauck as a writer. I think some of them are cute, but yeah, I don't love her writing. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But, I mean, they are pretty famous royal series. And I do really like A Royal Christmas Wedding. It's a novella, and it's a Christmas story. So, you know, read it at Christmas. Or read it... No, I very rarely read Christmas stories just at Christmas, let's be honest. But, yeah, I really like that one. And I really like A Royal Christmas Wedding. But the other ones that I've read are... They're just kind of there. They're pretty forgettable in my mind. They're pretty light. they're very Hallmarky, which I do like Hallmark Channel movies. Well, I used to like them a lot more than I do now, but okay, anyway. So our next author is Lori Wick, and she has a book called The Princess, and this is a little bit different from our other entries because it's a little bit of a gentler and slower story. It's a royal story, but it's a lot about grief and opening up your heart to somebody new after you've lost someone. So in The Princess, we have a prince, and he's actually a widower. But there's and it's been a few years since I've read this as well, but there's some kind of law or tradition that a prince has to be married by a certain birthday, and he was married, but then he lost his wife, and that birthday is now coming up. I feel like it's 25 or something. And so because that birthday is coming up and he's a widower, he has to marry again so that he can have, his princess by that birthday. And so his parents, the king and queen, actually find this girl in the kingdom, and I forget her name, but she's a commoner, and she's really quiet and really sweet, and she's a strong Christian, and they're like, look, we'd really like you to come and marry our son. And she says, okay. She prays about it, and she says, okay. And so they get married. His name is, I think, Nikolai, but I forget what her name is. But yeah, so he's kind, but he's also very closed off because he's not only still in grief over his first wife, but he doesn't want to open up himself to that kind of pain again of losing another person. So he's very closed off, though he's not mean or anything. He's kind. He's just not, very open or very sharing. And so they have their struggles there, but they do come to love each other. So it's kind of more of a slower, healing type love story, which is a little different than some of the books on this list, but it's a good one. And most of the I've never heard anybody who's read it say they didn't like it. So yeah. So next we have Hannah Currie, which is a White Crown author, and she has 2 royal series. The first royal series is also the first series she ever published, which is The Daughters of Peverell. And the first book of the series, and I have the first and the third on Kindle and the second one in print. I need to get them all in print so that they can look nice next to each other on the shelves. But so the first book is A Heart of a Royal, and it's her first book ever published, as well as the first book in the series. The second book is Heart of a Princess, which, as you can see, is very pink. And then the third book is Heart of a Crown. And I remember reading Heart of a Royal right after it came out, and it was not the best thing I had ever written, but I remember being wow, this is her first novel, this author is going places. And I felt like there was so much potential there, and so I've been reading her ever since, and she has just gotten better and better as time went on. So each of the books in the Daughter of Peverell series, the first one follows McKenna, and McKenna is a best friend and companion to Alina, who's the princess in this series. And so Alina is the princess, and her brother Thorabin, his name is Thorabin, but we call him Ben. He is the crown prince, and their mother died the day that Alina was born, or within a week of her birth or something. And so the king found a midwife for her and a caretaker for her, which was McKenna's mother. McKenna and Alina were born on the same day, which is why I think that the mother died the day that she was born, because they went out and they found somebody who had also given birth that day to come in and be the midwife. So because McKenna's mother kind of was brought into the palace for this purpose, McKenna was kind of raised alongside Alina and Ben as a companion to them, so that her mother could raise her and be a kind of surrogate mother to Alina as well. And so she was raised as a companion to them and was pretty much treated like a second princess, but there was always that that line drawn in the sand that said, you are here, you're doing you're getting the royal tutors and you're getting all the treatment of the princess, but you're not actually a princess, you're not actually a royal, and one day you're going to have to go. So in The Heart of a Royal, Alina and McKenna are 17, and they're like a month away from their 18th birthday, I think. And so McKenna knows that like on her 18th birthday, she's gonna have to leave the palace. It's been made very clear to her that like once they turn 18, Alina's no longer gonna need, the surrogate mother and her companions. So McKenna's job and her mother's job will be done, and they'll be, gone. And so she has started distancing herself from both Alina and Ben, because she's like, I know it's going to be really painful for me to leave them. They're like my family, so let me start distancing myself now and preparing for that. Meanwhile, Ben is like having none of it. He's like, I'm sorry, you are a part of us. You're not going anywhere. And he's like, I don't care what my dad has said. You're not going anywhere. And then something happens, and I won't get into too much details, but it ends up becoming kind of a forced marriage between Ben and McKenna. Something happens to kind of threaten her reputation, and like nothing, I'm not explaining this well, nothing like bad actually happens to her, like she's not ruined or anything, but something happens that makes people question her reputation, and so they end up getting married to save her reputation. And so they have this kind of marriage of convenience going on, but she feels really awkward and really bad because she feels like, she's not the royal that she should be. He should have married an actual princess, and she feels like she's ruined his chances and ruined his ability to marry somebody he truly loves and marry somebody who's actually on his social status. And so there's that going on. So it's very much, she really has to deal not only with, how do I explain this? The main point of the book is her coming to terms with the life that has been given to her that she didn't expect, and her believing in God in that. And I guess I should have mentioned earlier that like Christian beliefs has been outlawed in the country, and so she did not grow up learning about God, but somebody shares with her throughout the novel, and so she has to kind of come to terms with a life that she didn't expect in juxtaposition with this new knowledge of God that she had never heard of before. So yeah, it's definitely more like there is romance there, but I think the romance is very much downplayed, as opposed to she is learning who God is and learning to accept that he may have given her this life even though she didn't expect it, So yeah, that was a really long explanation. But yeah, I just saw so much potential there, and I was like, I'm going to keep reading Hannah Currie, and I'm so glad I've kept reading Hannah Currie. So then the second novel in the series is about Alina, who is the princess that I mentioned before, and she basically has what is the equivalent to a really, really bad panic attack when she's in front of the press one day, and her brother gets really worried about her, and so he sends her to a ranch where his friends live out in the country, away from all the paparazzi, where she can like kind of heal. And so that's her plot going on. And then the third book, Heart of a Crown, is about one of their friends who is a young noblewoman, and she has some drama that goes on in like the first book and the second, and her drama is involved in the first book and the second book, and then so we actually get her story in the third book. But I can't really give you any details about it because both characters in the third book, they have big parts in the first and second book, so if I tell you about them, they might have some spoiled things from the first and second book, so I won't say anything about them, but just that they have their own stories. And then Hannah Currie has a second royal series, which is called The Crown of Promise, which this one, Hearts of Peverell, is contemporary, but The Crown of Promise, I should have said, all the Rachel Hauck books are contemporary, and the Wick book is also contemporary. But A Crown of Promise is actually medieval royalty fiction, and it is so, so good. So she starts the first book I can't speak today. Sorry. She starts The Crown of Promise with a short story called The Least of These, which is like the king and queen's love story. And let me just say, it is so cute. It's like a 10, maybe 15 minute read. well, maybe like 30 minutes. But it's a short story. It's really short. But it's so cute. And it's free on the White Crown website. So y'all should go look it up because it's super, super cute. But then we go into the first book, which is Bring Her Home. And I started reading Bring Her Home when it came out. And then I put it down and I just haven't picked it back up. But I need to. The second book in the series is called Guard Her Heart, which I was on the launch team for this previous October. And if you've watched my videos on it, then you know that it was 5 stars. It was so good. It made it into the top 10 books that I read in 2023. It was so good. And then the third book in the series, Hold Her Close, comes out October 2024. So it'll come out in the fall. Each of the books is about a different sister. Their father is the king of, I want to say Raiden Leaf is how you pronounce the kingdom. So in the first book, the sister in the first book, she runs away from home, and I don't remember why. Just something, she like fights with her father and she runs away from home. And it's a kind of a prodigal son story because she's living as a kitchen maid and kind of prisoner of her father's enemy when we meet her. And she doesn't want to, or she doesn't feel like she can go home because she felt like the dishes she's made are so shameful that her father would never accept her back. Meanwhile, her father keeps sending out knights looking for her. He's been looking for her since she left, and I think it's been like 4 or 5 years. And so our main hero, he is a knight that finds her, and he's like, okay, I'm going to take you home. And she's like, no, I can't go. Like, I'm too ashamed. He'll never accept me back. And he's like, well, I'm not going without you, so I'm just going to stay here until you change your mind. And so they go through that. And like I said, I haven't finished it, but I need to, especially knowing how good the second book is, because it makes me want to read it even more. In the second book, Guard Her Heart, we have the youngest sister, and the king has been so steeped in grief over his missing daughter that he kind of went lax about his kingly duties. And so his kingdom is suffering a little bit because of that. And then so in the second book, Guard Her Heart, we have the youngest daughter who's basically like going out in disguise at night to hunt and bring food to the poorest people in her kingdom. So it's basically, she's got like a Robin Hood thing going on. And our hero is the younger brother of the king's enemy, and he is sent to basically get rid of this Robin Hood figure because the king's enemy knows like the king isn't doing much, so if we get rid of the person who's actually doing the providing, then the kingdom will suffer, and therefore the king will suffer. But as our young hero tracks her down and finds out not that she's a woman, and then finds out that she's the princess, he's like, I cannot do this. Like, I can't be violent towards a woman. I can't hurt her. Although he does accidentally. He doesn't realize she's a girl at first, so he shoots her in the arm or in the shoulder with an arrow, and then when he hears her scream, he's like, oh my goodness, she's a woman. And so he takes her to a healer anonymously, and then when he realizes that she's the princess, he sticks around to keep an eye on her and protect her, and kind of slowly, through the influence of the Lord, is able to switch sides and be a good guy. But yeah, I won't spoil that too much for you. And then the third book, which will come out in October, is about the oldest sister. And because it comes out in October, I don't have all the details, but I believe that she has some kind of illness and that she believes she's dying, or the doctors say she's dying, and so there'll probably be some kind of like plot line of God healing her, I'm assuming, because I think that she does have some kind of illness. And I don't know about the hero of that story. I don't think we've met him yet in the first 2 books, so I can't say anything about that, but I am really looking forward to it. Okay, so next we have more medieval princesses. We have Jody Hedlund, who is a very prolific author in Christian fiction. She's got historical romances, medieval romances, adult fiction, YA. She's got it all. So she has the Lost Princesses series, which is another series that starts with a short story, which is Always. Always is a short story about a knight and a lady-in-waiting who, when their kingdom is under attack and they find out that the king and queen have died, they take the 3 young princesses. 2 are infant twins that were just born, and then the oldest princess is about 3. and they take them and hide them away. So that's the first short story. And then you have the books, which are Evermore, Foremost, and Hereafter. They're each about a different sister. And I just read these books again a couple months ago. So if you've watched my reading wrap-ups, I talked about them, so I won't say much more about them. And I won't get too repetitive about them. But they each follow a different sister. The first one, Evermore, follows the oldest sister when she is told, you're the crown princess and you're old enough now that it's time for you to rise up and take your throne back from the neighboring king who took it over when your parents died. And then the second two books about her young twin sisters as she goes to find them because she needs them to help take over the throne, and as they're each faced with the destiny that they didn't know they had. So they're good books. She also has the Fairest Maidens series, which is, I know the heroes in that series are all princes. I don't know if the girls are princesses or not. I think at least in one of them they are. I haven't read that series. I've just heard a lot about it, and I've heard it's good though. So, okay. So next we have Toni Shiloh. Toni Shiloh has 2 royal reads. One is In Search of a Prince, and 2 is To Win a Prince. I have not read either of these. I need to, because I've just heard fantastic things about them. Like, when In Search of a Prince came out, it was like all over Bookstagram and YouTube. Like, everybody was raving about it. So even though I haven't read them, I feel pretty confident in saying they're really good reads because I have only ever heard good things about them. Then we have Lacy Williams. She is an independent, a self-published Christian author, and like she has a very large bibliography, a very large backlist, like a lot of books. She has the Cowboy Fairytale series, which is Once Upon a Cowboy, Cowboy Charming, The Toad Prince, The Beastly Princess, and The Lost Princess. And these are contemporary royal reads. A lot of them actually take place in like Texas. I think like one takes place in Oklahoma, maybe. But most of them take place in Texas, and it's like a European kingdom. In the first book, a princess from a European kingdom is put in danger when she's in the U.S. for some royal appearance. Her bodyguard is shot, so she goes on the run, and she ends up at this ranch in Texas with a former military man. I feel like he's like a Navy SEAL or something, but he's retired, and so he takes on her protection. And they're all fairy tale retellings as well. So not only are they royal reads, they're fairy tale retellings. So this one is a bit of a Beauty and the Beast because he's kind of gruff, and he's like, oh, this princess was just dropped in my lap to protect, and I'm supposed to be retired and whatever. But yeah, it's really cute. Their names are Gideon and Alessandra, and I love them. Like, they were my favorite from the series. And then we have Cowboy Charming, which is when Alessandra's younger sister comes to visit her. She falls in love with a nearby cowboy, and it's a Cinderella retelling, I believe. It's a Cinderella retelling, except obviously reversed, so it's a Cinderella. And then we have The Toad Prince, which is a Prince and a Frog retelling, but again, it's gender reversed. So we have like this bad boy prince. He's their cousin, the girl's cousin. And he basically comes to Texas to track them down, but he meets a young rodeo performer, and he, her truck is broken down, so he stops to help her out, and they have their cute little romance. And then we have the Beastly Princess, which is the girls from the first 2 books, their older sister, who is the crown princess. She was in some kind of car accident as a kid, and like the side of her face is burned, and so she hides away from the public a lot because of her scars. And so in a way, it's like it's another Beauty and the Beast retelling, except she is the Beast this time, and so she's kind of like really. She's very closed off, and she's very gruff, and also in a lot of ways she's kind of mean because she just expects people to talk about her and not like her. So she's very like, she gets defensive and she snaps at people. So yeah. And then we have The Lost Princess, which is, I don't think that there's a specific fairy tale this one is retelling. It's just that it turns out they have a illegitimate sister that they didn't know about. And so when their father confesses it pretty much on his deathbed, they go in search of her. And so that's The Lost Princess. And then they have A Fairy Tale Christmas, which is just like a little epilogue short story where all of the characters from the first 5 books get together at their palace to have Christmas, and it's so cute. But that's just like a bonus story. So then there is like, technically it's still listed as a part of the Cowboy Fairytales series, but it's almost like a secondary series. Like, it came out several years after this first series, and it's about their children. So that one has the other princess, the Princess Matchmaker, the True Princess, and His Forever Princess. And with this one, I read the other princess, but it kind of upset me a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, and this is a little bit of a spoiler. So the other princess is about the twin daughters of Gideon and Alessandra, and it basically like says that when they were like children, one of the princesses is kidnapped, and they get her back after paying a ransom, but she's so traumatized that like she can't handle the princess life anymore. So Gideon basically takes her back to his ranch in Texas, and Alessandra stays at the palace with their other princess. So Gideon and Alessandra like live separately to raise their daughters, but then because they're living separately, they pretty much grow apart, and they've been estranged for like 10 years in this novel. And so I got really mad because I was like, how dare you separate them? They're amazing. I love Gideon and Alessandra. And I know that the 4th book in this second series, His Forever Princess, is like a rekindling of their romance. So like a second chance romance where they come back together. But still, I was like, how do you even suggest that they were separated in the first place? Like, I can't believe it. In my mind, they have been together forever. Like, there's no separation. I think I did read The Princess Matchmaker too, which is about their cousin, the oldest, the queen's, she's the queen now, but the oldest sister's son. It's about him. But I haven't read The True Princess or His Forever Princess, because with The Princess Matchmaker, since it's about their cousin, their story isn't brought up that much. But like with The True Princess, it's about the other princess is about the twin who's been living in Texas all the time, and the True Princess is about the twin who's been living at the palace. And so I was like, with the True Princess, like, their separation is going to come up again, and I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to read about their separation. And so, yeah, I haven't read that one, and I haven't read their rekindling romance story, because I was like, I don't need a rekindling romance story, because in my mind, they've never been apart. So, yeah. But they're really cute stories. They're really light stories. I would definitely, like, put them more on the inspirational side of things rather than, like, the Christian side of things. Because if you really know the difference, then you know, like, the Christian fiction, true Christian fiction, is going to have, like, a lot of mention of, like, Christ and the gospel and a lot of, like, spiritual lessons, kind of. And inspirational fiction is going to, like, it might mention it a little bit, or it might just be implied. And so this one, I know that the first book does mention, like, reading the Bible and praying. But some of the other books, like, it's just implied and it's not really mentioned much. So, yeah. Okay, so now we come to the final book in our series, which is Pepper Basham's Loyally Luke. It is the 3rd book in the Edgewood sibling series, and it is, so Authentically Izzy and Positively Penelope are not royal reads, but Loyally Luke is, because Luke goes to work on a project in Skymar, and he has a little romance with one of the princesses, and Loyally Luke comes out in May. I got an arc of it a few months ago that I read, and I absolutely loved it. You've heard me say it here before. It's so good. So good. 5 stars and beyond. If you haven't pre-ordered yet, please do, because it's so good. But yes, it is a royal read. And if that wasn't enough, Pepper Basham announced that she has a Christmas novella coming out in October of 2024. It's going to be called The Mistletoe Prince, and I think it's about the princess from Loyally Luke. It's about her brother who goes to the Edgewood hometown in North Carolina for something. I don't know yet. It comes out in October, but he goes to their hometown. So it's a small town, North Carolina, welcomes a prince romance. It's going to be a Christmas novella, so I'm really excited about that one. Okay, so that wraps up our royal recommendations. If you have any on your list that I've missed, please let me know. I love royal reads, so let me know if there's something here that I haven't thought of or haven't heard of. I'd love to read them. And if you like royal reads, let me know in the comment what your favorites are. Thank you.